It was past midnight when the silence of the mansion broke. A tiny voice, trembling, soft, full of ache. "Mom, please come back." The sound sliced through the air like a whisper from a broken heart. The Mafia boss, the man who ruled half the city in fear, stopped mid-step. His shoes echoed on the marble floor as he turned toward the sound. A sound no bullet, no scream, had ever shaken him like this one. Down the long golden hallway, a little girl sat curled beside the grand staircase, her face hidden in her small hands. Beside her stood a woman in a plain uniform, eyes wide, hands trembling. The waitress, the boss frowned. He had seen her before, quiet, polite, invisible. But tonight, something in her eyes wouldn't let him look away. He stepped closer. The child looked up, eyes shining with tears, cheeks pink from crying. "Where's my mom?" she whispered again. The words hit him harder than any gunshot. The waitress knelt, voice shaking. "Sleep, sweetheart. She'll come. She'll come soon." But even as she spoke, her eyes flickered with something else. Fear and guilt, the boss noticed. He always noticed. But tonight, the sight of that child, those eyes so hauntingly familiar, froze him in place. He crouched down, resting a hand on the girl's shoulder. "Who told you your mom was coming?" The child sniffed, voice fragile. "She always does. In my dreams." For a moment, just one, the man they called the devil in a suit felt his chest tighten. He'd buried emotions long ago, but something about that girl's voice reached into the grave of his heart. The waitress turned away, pretending to fix the blanket. Her hands trembled harder. She knew. If he looked closer, if he asked one more question, everything she'd hidden would burn to the surface. The boss straightened up, clearing his throat. "Make sure she sleeps," he said coldly, but his tone carried a crack, small, almost invisible. As he walked away, the waitress finally let her tears fall, silent, quick, like she'd been holding them for years. He didn't know. The woman standing in his hallway, the woman he barely remembered, was hiding the one truth that could destroy him. That little girl wasn't just crying for her mother. She was crying for the piece of his soul he never knew he'd lost. By morning, the mansion had forgotten the storm. But he hadn't. The echo of that tiny voice still scraped against his mind. He told himself it didn't matter. He'd buried things deeper than tears before. But that little girl's cry, it stayed. Downstairs, the staff moved like ghosts. Among them, the waitress from last night, hair tied back, sleeves rolled, trying to disappear. She shouldn't have been here. She was only meant to help serve at the private charity dinner weeks ago. But after she'd saved the boss's daughter from choking that night, the girl refused to eat without her. So the boss let her stay, just until the child settles. That's what he said. And somehow, she never left. Every morning she prepared the child's breakfast, humming under her breath. Old lullabies, half-forgotten tunes. The little girl laughed when she heard them. But the moment the melody ended, her eyes turned sad again. One of the guards whispered once, "She looks at that waitress like she's known her forever." No one dared repeat it. The boss walked in quietly. He didn't speak, just stood in the doorway watching. The scene should have been ordinary, but something about it pressed on his chest like memory trying to wake up. The waitress noticed him. Her voice faltered. The spoon in her hand trembled slightly. "Good morning, sir," she murmured. He nodded, his gaze flicking from her to the child, and back again. The little girl beamed. "Daddy, she made my pancakes like Mommy used to." The waitress froze. Her eyes glistened. Her breath caught. The boss felt his stomach twist. He didn't even remember telling his daughter how her mother made them. He stepped forward slowly. "How would you know that?" The waitress blinked fast. "Just a guess, sir." "Every child likes the same sweetness." He stared at her a little too long. Her lashes fluttered down. For a second, a single electric second, the air between them shifted. He saw something behind her fear, something like pain. The boss turned away, muttering, "Keep doing what you're doing. She seems happier," but his voice carried a tension even he couldn't name. When he left, the waitress exhaled like she'd been holding her breath for hours. Her hands shook as she gathered the dishes. Then quietly, she whispered to herself, "She remembers. She still remembers. No one in that mansion knew what she carried in her heart, a secret sealed in blood and lullabies. And as the Mafia boss walked away that morning, he had no idea he'd just tasted the first memory of a truth that would one day destroy everything he built. The mansion felt different that week. The staff laughed a little quieter. And the boss, he lingered longer than before. He told himself he was only checking on his daughter, but his eyes always found the waitress first. She moved quietly through the hallways, careful, graceful. Every time she smiled at the child, something inside him twisted, a warmth he didn't ask for, mixed with guilt he didn't understand. That afternoon, the girl played near the fountain, her laughter echoing off the stone. The waitress sat beside her, helping her arrange little white flowers into a crown. The boss watched from the balcony above. For a second it looked like a memory, his late wife sitting there, sunlight catching her hair exactly the same way. The image hit him like a wave, and he gripped the railing until his knuckles went white. Later, at dinner, he spoke without looking up. "Where did you learn to talk to her like that?" The waitress hesitated. "Children only need someone to listen, sir." He lifted his gaze slowly. Not everyone knows how to listen. Their eyes met. She dropped hers first. He noticed a small scar near her wrist. Something faint, but it stirred another flash of something he couldn't place. A hallway, a scream, a woman running through rain. He blinked and it was gone. After the meal, the waitress tucked the girl into bed. The child whispered, "Can you sing that song again?" The waitress began to hum, her voice trembling on each note. Outside the half-closed door, the boss stood listening. He knew that melody. He had heard it once, years ago, on a night soaked in blood and regret. He didn't move, didn't breathe. When the last note faded, he turned away and walked to his study, his heart beating too fast. He poured himself a drink, staring at the glass, whispering to no one. Why do I remember her voice? Down the corridor, the waitress sat alone on the edge of the child's bed, tears sliding down her face. Every word of that song had been a memory she was trying not to relive. She whispered to herself, "He can't remember. Not yet." The night stretched long and heavy, both of them awake, both haunted by the same ghost, and neither knowing it. He couldn't sleep that night. Every time he closed his eyes, that song played again, the one the waitress hummed to his daughter. It wasn't just a melody. It was a memory clawing its way out of the dark. He got up, walked to his study, and opened the bottom drawer of his desk. Inside were pieces of a life he'd buried. Old letters, broken cufflinks, and a faded photograph of his wife holding their newborn daughter. He stared at it for a long time. Her smile still hurt to look at. As he slipped the photo back into the envelope, something else fell out. Another photograph, one he didn't remember keeping. His fingers froze. It was taken years later. His daughter, barely 3, sitting in a park. And right behind her, blurred but visible, was a woman. Long dark hair, gentle eyes, and a face that looked too much like the waitress. His pulse spiked. It couldn't be. He turned the photo over. On the back, faint handwriting read, "For her safety. Please don't look for me." He sank into his chair, the world tilting around him. He wanted to believe it was a trick, a resemblance, anything but what it looked like. But the ache in his chest told him otherwise. Down the hall, the waitress sat awake too. She held a small locket in her hand, a piece of jewelry older than the child she cared for. Inside it was the same photo, same park, same day, same words on the back. Tears blurred her vision as she whispered, "You promised you'd never find it." At that exact moment, the boss poured another drink, whispering, "Who are you?" He looked out the window, the night air thick with questions and ghosts. And somewhere deep inside him, he already knew. The woman hiding in his house wasn't just a stranger. She was the reason his world had broken once before. The next morning came slow and silent. The mansion's marble halls looked colder than usual, as if the night itself had left a mark. The boss sat in his office, staring at the same photograph he'd found hours ago. He'd turned it over 100 times, searching for some clue he'd missed. But all he saw was her face, the waitress, haunting the background like a ghost that refused to stay buried. He didn't call her in. Not yet. Instead, he called his old friend from the security team. "Check something for me," he said. "Run a background on the new waitress. Name, address, everything. His tone was calm, but underneath it trembled like a storm waiting to hit. Meanwhile, in the kitchen, she tried to focus on her work, scrubbing dishes, setting breakfast, anything to stop her hands from shaking. She could feel his eyes on her even when he wasn't there. The air had changed. Something in him had shifted. When the little girl ran into the room, the waitress forced a smile. "Morning, sweetheart." The child jumped into her arms. "Papa said he's busy today. Can we go to the garden again?" The waitress nodded, but her voice cracked. "Of course, baby. Anything you want." In the garden, the girl plucked roses and asked questions only a child could ask. "Do you think Mama's in heaven?" The waitress froze. Her throat tightened. She wanted to lie, to smile, to say yes like always. But her voice came out in a whisper. "She's somewhere she can still see you, always." The girl smiled softly. "Then she must be watching us now." The waitress turned her face away, tears forming before she could stop them. She whispered under her breath, "I wish that were true." From his study window, the boss saw everything. The laughter, the tenderness, the way the waitress's hand brushed through his daughter's hair, like she'd done it 1,000 times before. It looked too natural, too familiar, and every second he watched, his suspicion grew heavier. That afternoon, the security call came. The man's voice on the other end sounded uneasy. "Boss, you're not gonna like this." "Say it." "She's clean. Too clean. No birth records before 8 years ago. No family. No digital trace. She doesn't exist before then." The boss leaned back in his chair, eyes narrowing. "Everyone exists somewhere." He ended the call and looked at the photo again. Her face blurred in the background. Exactly the same smile, exactly the same scar by her wrist. He rubbed his temples, trying to piece together a timeline that didn't make sense. That night, during dinner, the tension was thick enough to choke on. The child was cheerful, unaware of the storm brewing between the adults. The boss spoke finally, eyes locked on the waitress. "Where did you work before this?" She hesitated. "A small place, outside the city." "Name?" Her fingers gripped the tray tighter. "I don't remember what it was called." He raised an eyebrow. "You forgot the name of where you worked?" The little girl giggled, cutting through the silence. "She forgets a lot, Papa." Both of them forced a smile for her sake, but their eyes didn't match the smiles. When dinner ended, the boss walked her to the hallway. He stopped her gently, his voice lower now. "I don't like secrets in my house." Her lips trembled. "Neither do I, sir." Then she turned and walked away before he could say another word. Later, in her small room, she opened the drawer and pulled out a folded paper, a birth certificate. Her eyes blurred as she stared at the name written there. The little girl's name, below it, under Mother, was her own. She pressed the paper to her chest, whispering through tears, "I kept her safe, that's all that mattered." Down the corridor, the boss poured another drink. The glass trembled in his hand. He didn't know why his chest hurt so much when he looked at her, or why he couldn't shake the feeling that the woman he distrusted most was the only one keeping his broken world from falling apart again. He didn't know it yet. But he was one step away from remembering everything. He didn't plan to follow her. It just happened. The clock struck 11, and the mansion had gone still. Guards posted at every corner, lights dimmed, the world outside drowned in rain. The boss was in his study, staring at the fire when he heard footsteps, soft, quick, cautious. He looked up. Through the half-open door, he saw her silhouette passing the hall, coat draped over her arm. The waitress? Heading for the side exit. He frowned. No one left the mansion that late. No one except him. Without thinking, he slipped on his coat, left his glass half full on the table, and followed. Each step matched hers, silent, precise. He watched her unlock the back gate with a small key she wasn't supposed to have. Outside, the rain hit her face, and she didn't flinch. She walked fast, like someone who knew exactly where she was going. He followed from a distance, his shoes crunching over gravel, his pulse drumming louder with every step. The city lights blurred ahead. She turned down an alley, the one that led to the old chapel, abandoned for years. He slowed. "Why here?" She slipped inside through a broken wooden door. He waited a moment, then followed. Inside, The chapel was dark except for a few candles flickering on the altar. And there, on the stone floor, sat a small framed photo surrounded by white lilies. His wife's face smiled back at him from that frame. The waitress knelt before it, tears sliding down her face. Her voice broke in whispers. "I'm sorry. I couldn't keep the promise. She's growing. She keeps asking for you. And I can't keep lying forever." The boss froze. His heartbeat went wild. He stepped forward, voice low, rough with disbelief. "What promise?" She spun around, fear flashing in her eyes. "Sir, what are you doing here?" "I could ask you the same thing." He took another step. "You know her, my wife, don't you?" She looked down, trembling. The candlelight made her tears shine. "I knew her better than anyone. She saved me when no one else would." "Who are you to her?" he demanded. Her lips parted, but no words came. She just shook her head, whispering, "Please, not here." He looked at the photo again. The handwriting on the frame was the same as the note on the back of the picture he'd found. His chest tightened. "How long have you been coming here?" "Every week," she said softly. "Since she died? Why?" "Because she asked me to. Before she left." His hand dropped to his side, the weight of her words pressing into him. "What did she ask you to do?" The waitress's voice cracked. "To keep her daughter safe. From you." The silence that followed was brutal. Every sound vanished. Only the rain tapping against broken glass filled the space between them. He stared at her like she'd spoken another language. "From me?" Tears rolled down her cheeks. "She loved you more than life itself. But she was afraid. Afraid that the world you lived in would destroy your daughter. So she made me promise to hide the truth and protect the child, even if it meant protecting her from you." The boss's throat went dry. His voice dropped to a whisper. "And what truth are you hiding now?" She looked at him, eyes red, breath unsteady. "The one that could break you." For a long second, neither of them moved. The candles flickered, their faces half in shadow. And in that silence, something inside him broke. The wall he'd built for years began to crack. She stepped back slowly. "Please, sir, go home. Forget what you saw tonight." He didn't answer. He just watched her walk away through the rain, disappearing into the dark the same way she'd entered his life. Quietly, but leaving a storm behind. Morning came like smoke after a fire, quiet, gray, heavy. The boss hadn't slept. The image of her kneeling in that chapel still replayed behind his eyes. Every word she'd said echoed. "She asked me to protect the child. From you." He sat at his desk, the photo lying in front of him, his wife's smile now feeling like a riddle. He opened the locked drawer that hadn't been touched in years. Inside lay the box his wife had left behind, a sealed envelope, a few blood-stained letters, and a ring wrapped in silk. He broke the seal. The letter was written in her handwriting, soft, steady, and aching. "If you're reading this, it means the world I feared has reached you. I never stopped loving you, but I couldn't let our daughter grow up in your shadow. Promise me you'll forgive the girl who protects her. She carries my sin." He read it twice, then a third time. Every line tore a little more from inside him. He slammed the letter down, breathing hard. The name signed at the bottom blurred through the tears he refused to admit were there. He picked up the phone. "Get me everything you can on her, everywhere she's lived, everyone she's met," he told his security man. "I want the truth now." Hours passed. Outside, thunder rolled like a warning. Files landed on his desk one by one. Forged IDs, cash transfers, an adoption form, and one signature that made his heart stop. His wife's. The adoption record showed a child taken under a false name, the same date his wife had disappeared for 2 days years ago. He remembered that fight, the fear in her eyes, the secret phone calls she wouldn't explain. He'd thought it was another betrayal. Now he realized it was something else entirely. He whispered to himself, "You were hiding her." He pushed the papers away and opened the small jewelry box that came with the files. Inside, the ring, not his wife's, the waitress's. He remembered it. She'd worn it every day. On the inner band was an engraving he'd never noticed. 2 initials, his wife's and his own. His breath caught. That ring wasn't hers by accident. He rose from his chair, the storm pounding outside now matching the storm inside him. He walked through the halls, his mind racing, every memory rearranging itself, the way the waitress looked at his daughter. The lullaby she hummed. The scar on her wrist, the same one his wife had bandaged years ago when she saved a stranger from the streets. It was her, The girl his wife had saved, now the woman protecting his child. He stopped at the door of the nursery. The little girl was asleep, clutching her stuffed bear. The waitress sat beside her, eyes closed, exhausted. For a moment he just watched, his jaw tight, his chest heavy. Then quietly he said, "Wake up." She startled, standing too fast. "Sir, what's wrong?" He stepped closer, holding the letter. "You lied to me, but not for yourself." He laid the paper on the table between them. "Tell me everything." Her face went pale. "I can't. You will." She looked at the sleeping child, then back at him. "She made me promise to keep her secret until you were ready to know the truth." He gritted his teeth. "Ready? You think I was ever ready to lose them both?" Tears filled her eyes. She didn't want you to lose your daughter, too. The silence between them was sharp enough to cut. He finally whispered, "She trusted you more than me." The waitress shook her head. "No, she trusted your heart. She just didn't trust your world." He turned away, staring at the rain beating against the window. Every drop sounded like a confession. When he spoke again, his voice broke for the first time in years. "Where's the rest of her letter?" The waitress hesitated. Then she pulled a folded page from her apron pocket. Edges worn, words faded with time. "She told me to give you this when the past came back." He took it with trembling hands. The ink was faint, but one line burned clear. "When he finally remembers, tell him the promise wasn't to hide our child, it was to save him." He read it again, slower, the truth sinking deep. His wife hadn't been running from him. She'd been protecting him, from the enemies he'd made, from the blood that never washed off his hands. The waitress had carried that burden alone for years. He looked up at her, voice low, raw, changed. "What else are you hiding?" Her answer came in a whisper that would change everything. "Your wife isn't dead." The words hit him like a gunshot. "Your wife isn't dead." He didn't move, didn't breathe. The air in the room turned thin, like it didn't want to carry sound anymore. When he finally spoke, his voice was ice. "What did you say?" The waitress stepped back, eyes wide. "I shouldn't have," he cut her off. "You said she isn't dead." "You don't get to take that back." The silence after that was brutal. The rain outside had stopped, but thunder still rolled somewhere far away, like the sky itself was listening. She tried to speak, but the words tangled in her throat. "She wanted to disappear, sir. She planned it, long before that night." He stared at her, searching her face for any sign of a lie. "How long have you known?" Her eyes filled with tears. "Since the day it happened." He turned away, rage and disbelief warring inside him. The night his wife died, the blood on the floor, the gun on the table, the funeral he'd never been allowed to see her face. It all replayed, frame by frame. Every image now felt staged, a performance meant for him. He grabbed his coat. "Where is she buried?" "Sir, please," she said, reaching for him. "It's not safe to go there." He looked back, eyes cold, determined. "Neither is living like this." He walked out before she could stop him. The drive was long and silent. The roads twisted through fog and memory. Every mile closer to the graveyard felt heavier. He hadn't been there since the funeral. He couldn't. Now he didn't have a choice. By the time he reached the old cemetery, the storm had returned. Wind tore through the trees, rain falling like shards. He walked through the gate, coat soaked, heart pounding. Each step echoed in the dark. He found her grave exactly where he remembered it. The headstone tilted slightly to the left, roses wilted, name carved deep, Elena Moretti, beloved wife and mother. He stood there, staring, the rain washing down his face like tears he refused to shed. Then he noticed it, something off. The earth near the stone wasn't level, freshly disturbed, his breath caught. He dropped to his knees, brushed away the wet soil. The mud crumbled easily. Too easily, he dug with his hands until they burned, and then his fingers hit wood. He pried it open, empty, no body, no trace. Just a single folded piece of paper lying where her hand should have been. He picked it up with shaking hands. Inside, her handwriting again. "If you're reading this, I kept my promise. You weren't meant to find me like this. But if you have, it means our daughter isn't safe anymore." He read the words again and again until the ink blurred in the rain. Every part of him screamed. Anger, confusion, heartbreak. But underneath it all, something else stirred. Hope. He rose slowly, staring at the empty grave. She was alive, somewhere out there, and someone had helped her vanish. Behind him, gravel crunched. He turned fast, hand reaching for the gun he no longer carried. The waitress stood there under an umbrella, rain dripping from her coat. "I told you not to come," she said softly. He took a step toward her. "You knew she wasn't here," she nodded. "I helped her bury that box. I was with her the night she disappeared." His eyes darkened. "Why?" "Because she begged me to. She said they were coming for her. People you once trusted." He froze. The puzzle finally began to fit. The night of her death, the missing files, the betrayal inside his own circle. It hadn't been random. It had been a hit, and the only way to survive was to vanish. "Where is she now?" he demanded. Tears slipped down her cheeks. "She doesn't want you to find her." He grabbed her arm. "I don't care what she wants. She's my wife," her voice broke. "And she's the reason you're still alive." The words shattered the air between them. He let go slowly, his anger dissolving into disbelief. She stepped closer, voice trembling. "She made me promise to stay close, to watch over your daughter and make sure you never followed the trail. But now you have, and that means whoever hunted her knows you're awake again." Lightning split the sky behind them. The ground trembled with thunder. He looked back at the empty grave, then at her. "Then we find her first," she shook her head. "You don't understand. Finding her means war." He smirked, a cold glint in his eyes. "War is the only thing I've ever been good at." The rain fell harder, drowning everything but the fire that had returned to his voice. The Mafia boss had been silent too long, and now, with blood, truth, and love tangled together, he was ready to burn the world to find the woman who lied to save him. He thought he was finally breathing again. After weeks of nightmares, sleepless nights, and ghosts of the past, the mansion felt alive again. The waitress's laughter echoed down the hall, soft and unguarded, and his daughter's giggles danced with it. For a moment, the Mafia boss forgot he was a man hunted by his own memories. But peace never lasts for men like him. That night, the air felt different, colder, like someone had opened the door to a storm and forgot to close it. He walked into his daughter's room and froze. The curtains fluttered, though the windows were shut. The nightlight flickered, and beside the bed, a small paper crane sat folded on the nightstand, a paper crane, just like the ones his late wife used to make. His heart stopped. No one else in this house knew that, not even the waitress. He turned sharply, scanning every shadow, every whisper. And then he saw it. A faint reflection in the mirror, a silhouette, tall, still, watching, then gone, like it was never there. He grabbed his gun instinctively, stepping into the hallway. The air thickened with silence. Every creak sounded like a warning. Every light felt too dim. He checked every door, every camera feed. Nothing. No intruder. No trace. But something inside him whispered, "He's not imagining it." Downstairs, the waitress was still awake, reading his daughter a bedtime story. Her voice, calm, gentle, was the only real thing left in the house. He watched her from the doorway, gun still in his hand, mind spiraling. She noticed him and paused. "Everything okay?" she asked softly. He didn't answer right away. His eyes scanned her face, her trembling fingers, her eyes that carried too many secrets. "Did you go into my room tonight?" he asked quietly. She shook her head, confused. "No, sir. I just came to check on her." "Why?" He held up the paper crane. Her expression changed, barely, but he saw it. Fear, recognition, guilt. He stepped closer. "Where did you get this?" She swallowed hard. "I don't know. Maybe your daughter. Don't lie to me." His voice dropped, dangerous. He was no longer the calm protector. The Mafia boss was back. She took a step back, breath shaky. "I swear I don't." The lights went out. Total darkness. His daughter screamed. He spun toward her bed, and in the dim red glow of the emergency light, he saw a handprint smeared on the wall. Small, fresh. Written beneath it, in a child's handwriting, "She's not gone." His blood ran cold. He turned. The waitress had grabbed his daughter, holding her tight, whispering, "Don't look, baby. Don't look." The boss stormed toward the main door, yanking it open. The night wind roared in, carrying the faint sound of footsteps retreating into the dark. Someone had been here, watching. waiting. He ran into the garden, moonlight spilling over the wet ground. Footsteps marked in the dirt, leading toward the trees. He followed. The deeper he went, the louder his heartbeat grew, until he found something half buried under the old oak tree. Another paper crane, this one blood-stained. He picked it up slowly, unfolded it. Inside, a message written in the same handwriting. "You never buried the truth." He stood there for a long time, frozen, haunted and hollow. Behind him, the mansion lights flickered back on. The waitress stood in the doorway, holding his daughter, both trembling. The Mafia boss looked at her, eyes burning. "You need to tell me," he whispered, voice breaking. "Who's sending these?" Her lips parted, trembling, pale. Tears welled up, and then she said, almost in a whisper, "Someone who should have been dead." Cut to black. The mansion didn't sleep that night. Every door creaked like it was breathing. Every wall seemed to whisper things only ghosts should know. The waitress sat on the edge of the child's bed, arms wrapped around the little girl, whispering stories to calm her down. Stories she barely believed herself anymore. Downstairs, the Mafia boss poured a drink he didn't touch. His hands were shaking. The paper crane lay open on the table, blood smudged into the wood. He stared at the words. "You never buried the truth." His jaw clenched. He'd buried everything, or so he thought. He opened the hidden drawer under the table, the one nobody knew about. Inside were the old photographs, his wife, the child, and the woman who'd been found near the river the night his wife disappeared. The waitress. He stared at her picture, younger, scared, eyes wide like she'd seen something she could never forget. The same eyes that now looked at him with guilt. He whispered under his breath, "What are you hiding from me?" The lights flickered again. Upstairs, the girl cried out. He ran, gun in hand, bursting into the hallway. The door to his daughter's room was wide open. The waitress stood by the window, frozen, staring out into the night. "What the hell are you doing?" he barked. She turned slowly, her face pale, lips trembling. "Someone was out there," she whispered. "Standing near the gate, just watching." He rushed to the window, saw nothing, just mist drifting through the trees. But deep down, his instincts screamed, "They're back." He looked at her, eyes burning. "I want the truth right now." Tears welled up in her eyes. "I can't," she said softly. "Not yet." He slammed his hand against the wall, voice echoing like thunder. "You think I don't know you're lying? That you weren't there that night? That you don't know what happened to my wife?" Her shoulders shook. "You don't understand," she whispered. "If I tell you, they'll kill her." The words stopped him cold. "Her?" She looked at him, eyes wet. "Your wife." For a moment, the world just stopped. He couldn't breathe, couldn't think. "My wife's dead," he said, voice breaking. "I buried her." "I saw you buried a body," she interrupted, voice trembling, but not hers. He staggered back like she'd hit him. The walls seemed to close in, every sound fading. The waitress stepped closer, voice low and desperate. "She's alive, but you're not supposed to know that." He grabbed her arm, not out of anger, but desperation. "Where is she?" Her lips quivered. "I don't know anymore," she whispered. "But whoever's leaving those cranes, they do." A sudden crash echoed from downstairs, glass shattering, alarms blaring. He spun around, instincts kicking in. "Stay here," he ordered. "Lock the door. Don't move." He sprinted down the stairs, gun raised, heart pounding. The main door was open, wind howling through the hall. A trail of wet footprints led across the marble floor. At the end of the trail, a small black box. He crouched down, hands trembling as he opened it. Inside, another paper crane. But this one was folded from a photograph. He unfolded it slowly, his breath caught in his chest. It was a picture of his wife, standing beside their daughter. Dated 2 weeks ago, he froze. The photo trembled in his hand. His heart stopped beating for 1, 2, 3 unbearable seconds. Then he looked toward the staircase, where the waitress stood, watching him, her eyes full of fear. She knew this would happen. She'd been waiting for this night. He took a step toward her, voice low, dangerous. "You knew she was alive this whole time." Tears slid down her cheeks. "I was protecting you," she whispered. "You don't know what she became." The camera would fade out here, his face caught between rage and heartbreak, her tears glimmering under the dim light. as thunder rolled outside. And then, just before the screen goes black, a faint sound echoes through the house. A woman's voice, soft, broken, calling the name of the Mafia boss. He followed the voice, slowly, each step echoing through the marble halls like a heartbeat inside a coffin. That voice, the one that used to pull him back from his darkest nights, now crawled out of the shadows, trembling and real. He didn't know if it was madness or miracle. Stop, the waitress's voice behind him was shaking. Don't go out there. You're not ready to see her. He didn't listen. He walked toward the sound, the whisper that called his name again, soft, broken, alive. At the end of the hallway stood the old glass door leading to the garden. Rain poured outside, lightning slicing through the night. And in that storm, a woman stood barefoot on the wet grass, her white dress clinging to her skin, her hair tangled and dripping. She looked up, and his world fell apart. It was her. The wife he buried, the mother his daughter still prayed for every night, but her eyes, they weren't the same. They carried a darkness deeper than death. He opened the door, whispering her name like it might shatter. Elena. She smiled faintly, her lips trembling. You shouldn't have come looking. He froze. That voice, that tone, half love, half warning. He stepped closer. Where have you been? Who did this to you? Her gaze flickered to the waitress standing behind him. You told him? The waitress swallowed hard. He deserved to know. Elena's smile vanished. You've made a mistake. Thunder rolled above them, shaking the earth. He stared between them, his wife and the woman who had been protecting his daughter. What's going on? No one spoke, so he shouted, voice raw, echoing through the rain. Someone tell me what's happening. Elena's eyes filled with tears. They told me you'd never stop digging, that you'd rather burn the truth than live with it. He shook his head. What truth? She took a shaky step closer, rain streaming down her face. The night I died wasn't murder. It was mercy. He frowned, confused, angry. What are you talking about? Her voice broke. You were never supposed to find the body because it wasn't mine. It was hers. She pointed to the waitress. The world tilted. He looked at the waitress, speechless. Elena continued, whispering through her tears. She was my twin. We were both there that night. I tried to save her, but when the police came, they thought I was the one who died, and I let them believe it. The waitress closed her eyes, trembling. She made me promise, she whispered. Promise to protect the girl, to keep her safe until Elena came back. He stared at them, his mind unraveling. 2 women, 1 face, 1 lie that had destroyed everything. So you let me bury her, he said slowly, voice cracking. You watched me suffer. You watched our daughter cry for you. Elena's eyes filled with pain. I watched from a distance, every day, but I couldn't come back until it was safe. Safe from who? Her voice turned cold. The men you work for, lightning flashed. Her words cut like glass. You think you're the only one with enemies? She said, stepping closer. You think the mafia you lead isn't the same one that took my sister? The same one that wanted your daughter gone because of what she is? He froze. What she is? Elena's voice dropped to a whisper. She's not just your daughter. She's theirs too. Silence. The rain fell harder, washing the color from his face. He looked at her. Disbelief, heartbreak, rage all tangled in his eyes. What the hell does that mean? Elena's lips trembled. It means, the night I disappeared, I wasn't running from you. She looked straight into his soul. I was running from what you did. For a second, neither of them moved. The thunder faded into a soft hum. The truth hung in the air, heavy, poisonous, unspoken. Then behind them, the little girl's voice broke the silence. Mom? They turned. And there she was, standing at the top of the stairs, clutching her stuffed bear, eyes wide. She saw her mother, alive, breathing. Her small voice cracked into a sob. Mommy. And in that one word, every lie, every crime, every buried secret came crashing down. The rain finally stopped. But the silence it left behind was louder than thunder. She stood in the doorway, his wife, the woman he buried, dripping rain onto the marble floor. He stood a few feet away, staring like a man seeing a ghost he once loved more than life itself. Between them, their daughter took one shaky step forward. Mom? Her voice was small, almost afraid of being wrong. Elena's lips trembled. "Hey, baby," just 2 words, and the child broke. She ran across the floor, barefoot, arms open, sobbing as she crashed into her mother's chest. The Mafia boss felt the air leave his lungs. That sound, his daughter's cry, was something he'd memorized through nightmares. Now it was real again, but it didn't feel like healing. It felt like punishment. Elena dropped to her knees, holding the little girl so tightly it hurt to watch. The girl touched her mother's face with small fingers, as if checking she was real. "You came back," she whispered. "I told Daddy you would." Elena's tears mixed with rainwater. "I tried, baby. I tried so hard." Behind them, he couldn't move. Every muscle wanted to pull them both into his arms, to believe this was the miracle it looked like. But his mind whispered questions. Ugly ones. Things that made his stomach twist. He finally spoke, voice low, cracked. "Why now?" Elena looked up, still holding the child. "Because she kept asking for me," she said softly. "And because the people who took me know where we are." The waitress flinched. "They followed you?" Elena nodded. "They were never after me. They wanted her." The boss stepped closer, jaw tight. "You're saying our daughter, my daughter, is a target?" Elena looked at him, something breaking in her eyes. She always was. From the moment she was born, the little girl clung to her mother, sensing the fear. "Daddy?" she whispered. He forced a smile even as his chest caved in. "Everything's okay, sweetheart." But it wasn't. He could see it in Elena's face. Whatever she'd done to protect their daughter came with a price neither of them had paid yet. Later that night, after the child finally fell asleep, the 3 of them sat in the dim light of the study. The old clock ticked between them like a heartbeat they no longer shared. Elena broke the silence first. "I never wanted you to see me again," he laughed bitterly. "You think this is what I wanted?" She flinched at his tone. "I had to disappear," she said quietly. "If I hadn't, they would have taken her. Or worse." He stared at the glass in his hand. "You mean the men I worked for?" She didn't deny it. His knuckles whitened around the glass. "So you faked your death? Let me bury your sister? Let me destroy everything I built? Because you couldn't tell me the truth?" Her voice cracked. "If I told you, you would have tried to save me. And you would have died." The waitress watched in silence from the doorway, caught between guilt and loyalty. She'd lived with the child, cared for her, lied for her. Now, every secret she kept was spilling out like blood on marble. Elena reached across the table, fingers trembling. "You have no idea what they made me do, what I became to keep her safe." He met her gaze, cold, but breaking. "Then tell me now." Elena's eyes filled again. "If I do, you'll never look at me the same." He leaned forward, voice a whisper of threat and heartbreak. "I already don't," a long silence. Then the smallest sound, bare feet padding across the floor. Their daughter had woken. She stood in the doorway, clutching her toy bear, eyes heavy with sleep. "Daddy, are you mad at Mommy?" His throat tightened. He forced himself to smile. "No, baby, never." The girl walked to her mother and curled up in her lap, closing her eyes. Elena stroked her hair, humming softly, a tune he remembered from years ago, before blood and betrayal and paper cranes. He watched them, something shattering quietly inside him. This was what he'd wanted most, his family whole again. But the way they'd come back together felt wrong, like a prayer whispered over a grave that hadn't stopped breathing. He looked at Elena one last time, voice breaking. "Tomorrow," he said, "you're going to tell me everything." Her answer was barely a whisper. Tomorrow might be too late. He woke up to the sound of glass breaking, then silence. That kind of silence that feels alive. He reached for his gun before his eyes were even open. One glance at the clock, 3:17 a.m. The storm had stopped hours ago, but the house wasn't breathing right. He moved down the hallway barefoot, every step careful, slow. The waitress's door was half open. Empty bed, his stomach dropped. Then he heard it. A whisper. From downstairs. He crept toward the stairs, gun steady. Every creak under his foot echoed like thunder. Then, a scream. His daughter's. He ran. The living room was chaos. Curtains ripped. Furniture overturned. And in the middle of it, Elena, fighting like a cornered lion. 2 masked men, one holding her back, the other reaching for the girl. He didn't think. He fired one shot. The man dropped. The second lunged. He met him halfway, slamming him into the wall. Gun to his throat. Who sent you? The man didn't answer, just smiled beneath the mask. So he tore it off. The face underneath was familiar. A soldier, one of his. His world cracked open. You work for me, the man laughed through blood. Not anymore. Before he could ask more, the man slammed a hidden trigger in his vest. A beep. Then, explosion. The shockwave threw him across the room. Ears ringing. Dust. Smoke. Fire. He blinked through the haze. Elena was on the floor, blood on her arm, clutching the little girl behind her. The waitress dragged them toward the hallway, shouting his name. He crawled up, coughing, body screaming. Everything burned. Walls, air, memories. The mansion was collapsing. But above the crackle of flames, he heard something else. Footsteps. More of them. Dozens. They were surrounding the house. He reached for Elena, pulling her close. You said they'd find her, he shouted. Who are they? She looked at him. Tears, blood, fear. Your past, Leon. The people you thought you buried. The front doors burst open. Black coats. Silencers. Shadows moving like death itself. He fired first. Headshot. Then another. Adrenaline took over. He was no longer the broken father. He was the boss again. The devil they built and couldn't control. Take her, he yelled at the waitress. Get my daughter out. The waitress hesitated, terrified. He roared, now! She ran, clutching the child, disappearing into the smoke. Elena stayed behind, loading his spare gun with shaking hands. This is what they wanted, she said, voice trembling. You, her, me. They'll never stop. He looked at her, eyes burning, heart already bleeding. Then we don't stop either. They fought side by side. Two ghosts of a love that refused to die. Bullets, screams, glass exploding around them. She moved like a memory he'd forgotten. Grace, fury, pain. He covered her every step, firing until the gun clicked empty. When the smoke cleared, bodies covered the marble floor. But outside, more engines roared. A van screeched up. Armed men jumped out. Too many. Elena grabbed his arm. They want her alive. Not us. He shook his head. They'll never touch her. She looked at him, eyes full of something between love and goodbye. Then you need to let me end this. Before he could stop her, she ran toward the door, gun in hand, her body glowing under the firelight like a ghost running home. Elena, he shouted. She turned once, smiling through tears. Tell her I never stopped loving her. Then she stepped into the fire. The blast ripped through the mansion. The roof caved in, and then silence again. He stumbled through the ruins, coughing, bleeding, screaming her name. No answer. Only flames and the faint smell of roses, her perfume still lingering in the smoke. Outside, the waitress clutched the little girl. They watched as the house burned, their faces lit by the fire. The child whispered, Is Mommy coming? The waitress looked at the man standing in the ruins, his figure broken, his heart gone. She never left, she whispered. The camera would fade on him, silhouetted against the burning mansion, holding the last paper crane between his fingers. Half burnt, half whole, just like him. He opened it. Inside, one final message written in his wife's handwriting. You never buried me. You buried the truth. Cut to black. He woke to the smell of rain on smoke. The fire was gone, but the world still burned. Ash covered everything. The marble floor, the portraits, the gun still warm in his hand. He sat up slowly, lungs tearing from the dust. For a second. He didn't remember her name. Then it hit him like a blade. Elena. He tried to stand. His legs trembled. His arm was bleeding, but none of that mattered. He staggered through the rubble, calling out, Elena, answer me! Nothing, only the wind. And the faint metallic drip of rain hitting what was left of his home. He found her necklace first. Half buried under debris, the small silver heart he gave her years ago. Now blackened, melted, twisted. He clenched it in his fist until his knuckles bled. That was when he heard it. A small, fragile sob. Not far. He turned. The waitress, kneeling beside the girl under the shattered gate. He ran, dropping everything, stumbling over glass and ash. The girl looked up, her face streaked with soot and tears. "Papa?" He froze. That one word shattered what was left of him. He fell to his knees, pulling her into his arms. She was trembling. So small, so alive. And for a moment, he forgot everything. The blood, the bodies, the betrayal. Just her heartbeat against his chest. The waitress spoke softly. They tried to take her. Said she wasn't supposed to live. He turned to her, voice like gravel. "Who said that?" She hesitated. I didn't see their faces, but one of them had a tattoo, a mark on his wrist, a black serpent wrapped around a cross. He froze. That symbol, he knew it. It wasn't random. It was his, the mark of the Order, the same syndicate he created 10 years ago, and buried 6 feet deep. Except now, they were back, and they wanted his daughter. He stood up, every muscle shaking, rage burning hotter than the fire had. "Get her to the car," he ordered. The waitress blinked. "Where are we going?" He stared into the horizon, where the rain met the smoke, and the city lights flickered far beyond. To finish what I should have finished years ago. They drove through the ruins of the night, headlights cutting through mist and memory. The girl slept in the back seat, clutching the paper crane her mother left behind. Every breath she took sounded like a promise he couldn't afford to break. The waitress watched him from the passenger seat. His hands were steady on the wheel, but his eyes, empty. Like a storm with no sky left to rage in. She finally asked, "Who were they, Leon?" He didn't answer. He couldn't. Instead, he whispered almost to himself, "They built me to kill. But they forgot. Monsters don't die easy." By dawn, they reached the old church on the hill. The place where his story began, and where hers might end. He stepped out, the cold wind biting his face. The air smelled of rust and rain. He walked toward the broken altar, each step heavier than the last. Kneeling, he placed the burnt paper crane on the stone. He spoke softly. "To the woman I couldn't save, and the child they'll never touch." He closed his eyes. For the first time, he prayed, not for mercy, but for strength to destroy everything that came next. Behind him, the waitress whispered into the radio she'd stolen from one of the dead men. "Target alive. Heading to Sector 9, a crackle." A voice replied, cold and mechanical. "Understood. Do not engage. We'll take it from here." She turned, her face a perfect mask, but her eyes trembled as she watched the man who trusted her. The man who didn't know. She was never just a waitress. She was the bait. As he lifted his daughter into his arms, the first sunbeam broke through the clouds. For a second, it looked like peace. But peace was just the silence before the next war, and in the distance, black SUVs rolled down the road, engines humming like beasts waiting to devour. The camera would hold on his face, calm, cold, broken, but ready. He whispered, almost smiling, "If they're coming for me, they better bring an army." Cut to black. It started with silence. Not peace, not calm, just the kind of silence that crawls under your skin and whispers, "Something's wrong." Leon stood by the church window, watching dawn burn the mist. The girl was asleep again, curled up on a pew, clutching her paper crane. The waitress, Maya, sat near the doorway, pretending to rest, but Leon didn't sleep. He hadn't in years. He could tell when someone was lying, even without words. He turned slightly, eyes sharp. "Why didn't you flinch when I said the order?" Maya froze. Just for a second. But it was enough. He smiled faintly. A broken smile. "I spent half my life reading fear. You can't fake it. Not with me." She didn't answer. Her hand slowly slid behind her back. But before she could reach for anything, he was already there, gun drawn. Pointed at her heart. "Don't," he said quietly. "Not here. Not in front of her." The little girl stirred in her sleep. A whimper. Then silence again. Maya's voice cracked. "You don't understand, Leon. They were going to kill her if I didn't." He stepped closer. "Who's they?" "The same people who built you." That line hit like a bullet through the ribs. Leon's pulse stopped for a second. He remembered the experiments, the missions, the coded orders written in blood and loyalty. The men in black suits with no names. "They don't exist anymore," he said coldly. Maya shook her head. "They never died. They just changed faces." She took a deep breath. "I was sent to watch you. Years ago, before Elena disappeared." He felt the world tilt. You were there. Even then? Yes, her voice trembled. I was supposed to get close. Learn your weaknesses. But when I saw your daughter, when I saw what they planned to do, I couldn't. Leon's voice turned razor sharp. You lied. You let me believe you were innocent. I was innocent, she whispered, until I met you. He lowered the gun. Just an inch. Enough for doubt to slip in. She stood up slowly, tears cutting through the ash on her cheeks. They wanted her because of Elena. Your wife wasn't just running from them. She was hiding their biggest experiment. Leon's voice cracked. What are you talking about? Maya stepped closer, shaking. The child isn't just yours, Leon. They created her. The words hit like thunder. He felt his knees weaken. She's not an experiment, he said. She's my daughter. Maya nodded softly. She's both. She reached into her jacket, slowly, and tossed a small metal drive onto the floor. It clinked against the stone, rolling to his boots. That's everything. Files, names, what they did to Elena, what they planned for her. For you, he stared at it like it was poison. Every instinct screamed, don't look. But he couldn't resist. The screen flickered to life on his old phone. Images, labs, doctors in white coats. Elena tied to a chair, screaming his name. A small child in a glass room, crying as machines hummed. The label, Subject E01. Emotional Replication Genome. Phase 3, his vision blurred. He wanted to smash the phone, tear the world apart. But all he could do was whisper, what did they do to her? Maya's voice broke. They used Elena's DNA, yours too. They said your love was the perfect chemical match for emotional enhancement. They wanted to build human emotion. And your daughter, she's proof it worked. Leon's face hardened. His breath came shallow, uneven. You mean to tell me my family was a project? Maya looked away. No, she became real because of you. But they still want her back, to finish what they started. Leon turned toward the sleeping girl. Her tiny hand clutched the paper crane like it was the world. He knelt beside her, brushing her hair gently. For a moment, the monster inside him went quiet. Then he looked back at Maya. Cold, controlled, unreadable. You had your chance to kill me, he said. Why didn't you? She swallowed hard. Because I fell in love with the man I was supposed to destroy. He stared at her for a long moment. Then quietly, you don't know what love is. Not if you serve them. He stood, tucking the drive into his pocket. His eyes were distant, like someone already planning a war. If the Order wants my blood, he said, voice low, then I'll make sure they drown in it. Maya took a shaky step forward. Leon, please don't go alone. He stopped at the door, turned just enough for his shadow to touch hers. I was born alone, he said, and tonight, I'll die the same way. He left. The door slammed behind him, and in the pew, the little girl whispered in her sleep, Papa, don't leave. The night smelled like gasoline and rain. Cold wind tore through the broken city, whispering secrets through the alleys. And somewhere in that silence, Leon moved like a ghost. Black coat, gloves still wet from blood, eyes colder than the sky above him. He wasn't running anymore. He was hunting. Every streetlight flickered as he passed. Every shadow seemed to recognize him. The man they once feared, the one they thought was dead, was back. He stopped in front of an abandoned factory. Rust, steel, decay. The same place where the Order had first built him. Where the monster was born. He lit a cigarette, hands trembling slightly. The smoke curled like memory. Sharp, bitter, familiar. This is where it ends, he muttered, but not for me. He crushed the cigarette under his boot and walked in. Inside was silence. Then a whisper, footsteps echoing on wet concrete. 3 men stepped out of the shadows. Black suits, guns raised, faces hidden behind glass masks. Leon Hart, one said through a voice distorter. You were never meant to survive. Leon smiled faintly. Neither were you. The first shot came fast. He ducked, rolled, fired twice. 2 bodies dropped. The third ran. Leon followed, cornering him near a broken staircase. Pinned him with the barrel of his gun. Tell me where she is. The man shook his head. You can't protect her. She's property. The next phase has already started. Leon's grip tightened. What phase? The man smirked behind the glass. Replication. Bang. 1 shot. Silence again. Leon leaned against the wall, breathing heavy. His reflection in a shattered mirror stared back. A man built from violence, now drowning in purpose. He whispered, "I'll burn this world before I let them touch her." Then pulling out his phone, he opened the file Maya gave him. Coordinates, names. A base location stamped in red, Sector 9, the cradle. He memorized it, deleted it, and walked back into the storm. Meanwhile, Maya sat in a dim motel room, staring at the same coordinates glowing on her tablet. Tears stained her cheeks. Her hand trembled as she pressed send. A voice on the other end spoke. "You did well," she whispered. "I didn't do it for you. Then for who?" She looked at the photo on her screen. Leon carrying the child through the fire. "For them," but the voice only laughed. "Don't lie to yourself, Agent Vega. You're not saving him. You're guiding him to the end." She threw the tablet at the wall, breaking it in half. Her breathing hitched. Her guilt finally louder than the lies. Leon arrived at the motel just as dawn began to rise. Door kicked open, gun raised, but Maya didn't move. She was sitting on the bed, waiting. "I knew you'd find me," she said quietly. "You should have run," he replied. She smiled weakly. "I stopped running the moment I met you." He didn't answer. He just lowered the gun. His voice was low, almost human again. "They've taken everything from me. You helped them. But now, you're going to help me end it." Her eyes widened. "Leon, if we go after the cradle, we won't come back." He stepped closer, shadows carving across his face. "Then we make sure they don't either." Cut to a secret convoy moving through the outskirts of the city. SUVs, soldiers in black, and inside one of the trucks, the little girl. Strapped to a medical chair, eyes open, glowing faintly in the dark. A voice from a speaker said, "Subject E01 stable. Commence transfer to the cradle." Her small voice broke the silence. "Papa's coming," the guard laughed. "No one's coming for you, kid." But then, a sound outside. Engines roaring. Bullets shattering the glass. The truck swerved. Screams. Metal crashing. Through the smoke. Leon appeared. One man. One gun. A face carved by loss and fury. He ripped the door open, grabbed his daughter and whispered, "Close your eyes, baby. I've got you." She smiled faintly, whispering back, "I told them you'd come." As he carried her into the burning dawn, Maya's voice came through the earpiece. "They'll follow. They always do," he answered coldly. "Then we make them wish they hadn't." He looked down at the girl in his arms, her eyes glowing brighter now, the light almost unreal. "Papa," she whispered. "They said I'm not real." He kissed her forehead. "You're the only real thing left in this world." The camera would pull back. Flames rising behind them, the city burning beneath the dawn, and one man walking through it all, ready to destroy the world that created him. The road ended at a mountain of steel. They called it the cradle, where creation met control, and humanity sold its soul for science. The sky above was bruised purple and gray. Rain hit the ground like shattered glass. Leon stood in front of the giant structure, his daughter asleep in his arms, Maya behind him, silent, shaking. "You sure this is it?" he asked, voice flat. Maya nodded. "This is where they built you, and where they built her." They entered through a half-collapsed gate. The hallways were cold, humming with dying lights. Every step echoed like ghosts remembering. Leon stopped when he saw the wall. Rows of photographs, soldiers, scientists, experiments, and in the center, Elena. Her eyes stared back from the frame. Still alive, still strong, and behind her, a baby in a glass capsule. Leon felt his stomach drop. His voice cracked for the first time. "Don't tell me," Maya whispered. "She didn't die, Leon. She was taken back." He stumbled backward, rage boiling beneath the grief. "All these years, I buried her. I blamed myself." Maya's voice was trembling now. "They said she volunteered, that she believed the child was the key to ending human war." He turned on her, eyes blazing. "Don't you dare make her sound like them." "I'm not," she cried. "I'm telling you what they told me." But the files said something else. Elena wasn't volunteering, she was forced. "They threatened you. Threatened your daughter before she was even born." Leon's fists clenched. The truth burned hotter than any fire. He looked down at his sleeping child. The faint glow in her veins flickered under the skin. "She's waking up," Maya said. "She can feel it." They reached the central chamber, a massive dome of glass and metal. In the middle, a pod. Inside it, Elena, suspended in liquid light, eyes closed, heart still beating. Leon's gun fell from his hand. His breath stopped. He staggered forward like a man walking into a dream he'd never dared to have. Elena, her eyes opened. It was like time broke in half. Her voice was weak but real. "Leon?" He pressed his hand to the glass. Tears spilled without warning. "I thought you were gone. You did nothing wrong," she whispered. "They told me you were dead. I did this to protect her." He shook his head. "No, they used you. They used all of us." Elena smiled faintly. "I knew they would come for her one day. That's why I left the cranes." He froze. "The paper cranes?" She nodded. Each one carried a message. A memory, a code. "The last one will show you how to end them." Behind them, an alarm blared. Red lights flashed. Doors slammed shut. Maya shouted that they found us. Leon turned, fury igniting again. "Then they die here." Guards poured into the room, weapons raised. Leon moved faster. Precision, power, rage. Every bullet was a promise. Every kill, a prayer. But there were too many. One guard got close enough. Shot hit Maya. She fell, blood blooming across her shirt. Leon caught her as she fell. Her hand grabbed his wrist. "Finish it," she whispered. "For all of us." He stared at her, the woman who lied, betrayed, and still saved him. Then he nodded once. "I will." Her eyes went dim. Her body went still. He turned back to the pod. Elena still inside, watching through tears. "How do I stop them?" he asked. She placed her palm against the glass, voice breaking. "Take her. Go to the control core. If you destroy it, everything ends, me included." He shook his head violently. "I'm not losing you again, Leon. Please." Her voice cracked. "She's the only real thing we ever made." He pressed his forehead to the glass. For one moment, just one, he let himself break. Then he stood, eyes cold again. "Tell her. I'll make sure the world remembers her name." He grabbed his daughter, turned toward the steel corridor, and ran. Behind him, Elena smiled weakly, whispering to the darkness, "Go, my love. Become the monster they fear." The alarms grew louder. Machines sparked, and as Leon disappeared into the smoke, the pod cracked open. Elena stepped out, glowing faintly like the memory of something divine. Her whisper echoed through the cradle. Low, haunting, unstoppable. "If love built us, then love will destroy you." Cut to black. The alarms screamed through the cradle like dying machines. Red light bathed every wall. The air was thick with smoke and gunfire. Leon ran. His daughter clutched tight against his chest, her small fingers gripping the back of his neck like she knew he wouldn't let go. Behind them, shadows chased, armed soldiers, drones, the ghosts of the system he once built. Maya's blood was still fresh on his sleeve. Her last words echoing in his skull. Finish it, he would. Even if it meant burning the world. They reached the lower levels. The core chamber pulsed below, a giant sphere of light and machinery humming like a god that forgot mercy. Leon smashed through the final door. The heat hit him like fire wrapped in lightning. He set his daughter down. "Stay behind me no matter what." Her eyes glowed faintly again, trembling with power she didn't understand. "Papa," she whispered. "It hurts." He brushed her cheek gently. "I know, baby. Just a little longer." He stepped toward the control platform. Monitors flickered to life, and a familiar face appeared on every screen. Elena. But this time, not the Elena he remembered. Her voice was calm, mechanical, fragmented by static. "Leon, you shouldn't be here." He froze. "Elena, you can't stop the core. I'm part of it now." His throat went dry. "They made you into this?" She smiled sadly. "No, you did. When you destroyed the order the first time, I was dying. The only way to save our daughter was to become what they feared most." The truth hit like a blade to the chest. His hands shook as he gripped the railing. "All these years, all this pain, and you were inside this machine?" Her holographic eyes softened. "I watched her grow, watched you survive, but if you stay now, you'll die, Leon." He laughed bitterly. "I died a long time ago." He looked at the glowing core, the size of a cathedral, pulsing like a heartbeat. What happens if I destroy it? Elena's voice trembled. The cradle collapses. Every system, every lab, every soldier they built, gone. But so will I. And her power. He clenched his jaw. Then so be it. Footsteps echoed behind him. Dozens of soldiers pouring in. Weapons raised, the girl gasped. Her eyes blazed white, and with one scream, the entire hallway shook. The soldiers flew backward, slamming into walls like rag dolls. Electric sparks danced in the air. Leon turned, stunned. She stood in the light, tiny, trembling, but unstoppable. Her voice was small, scared. Papa, I can make them stop. He grabbed her shoulders. No, don't use it. You'll kill yourself. She looked up at him, tears glowing. But Mama said, love is stronger than fear. And before he could stop her, she ran toward the core. The chamber erupted in white fire. Leon screamed her name, sprinting after her, but the energy threw him back, slamming him into the wall. He tried to move, but the light swallowed everything. In the glare, he saw Elena's shape, not a hologram now, but her. She was standing beside their daughter inside the core, arms around her, holding her safe. Elena. Her voice echoed through his mind. Leon, listen to me. He crawled forward, every bone breaking, every breath on fire. Please, don't do this. You once told me you'd burn the world to protect her. Her smile broke through the tears. Now I'm just keeping your promise. The core started to implode. Metal screamed. The entire structure shook. Leon reached the edge of the platform as a storm of light consumed the room. He could see them, Elena and the girl, their silhouettes glowing, merging with the energy. Elena whispered one last time, "She'll live through you." Then the world exploded. Silence. Nothing but the sound of wind and falling ash. When Leon opened his eyes, he was lying outside the ruins of the cradle. Everything behind him was gone. Only fire and dust. He sat up slowly, coughing blood. His hand brushed against something soft, the paper crane. The last one. Folded perfectly, untouched by the fire, he opened it. Inside, written in Elena's handwriting, "If love built us, let it save us." He looked up at the rising dawn, eyes full of ash and grief, and something close to peace. The core was gone. The world was burning, but his heart was still beating. And somewhere inside the wind, a small voice whispered, "Papa, I'm still here." The world was quiet, too quiet. The wind that once carried screams now whispered through ruins. The fire that devoured the night had turned to gray smoke rising slow against a pale sky. Leon walked barefoot through the wreckage of the cradle. Every step crunched against glass and ash. His clothes were torn, his hands burnt, but his heart, that still beat like it refused to die. In the distance, the sun was breaking through, golden light touching the blackened steel. It almost looked peaceful. Almost. He stopped by what used to be the control tower. Half-melted metal, cracked screens. The place where Elena's face had appeared. He reached out, touching the cold surface. "She's gone," he whispered. The words cracked halfway through. But then, he heard it. A faint echo. Not from outside, from within. A soft hum, like her voice, buried under static. He froze. "Elena?" No answer, just wind. Still he smiled. A broken smile. "Of course," he said quietly, "you'd find a way to stay." He walked further, past the scorched ground where the core once stood. The crater was deep, like a scar in the earth, and in the center, something glimmered. He knelt. It was a piece of glass, glowing faintly blue. When he picked it up, warmth spread through his palm. The light pulsed. 1, 2, 3 times. Then faded. He closed his hand around it. It felt like a heartbeat. He didn't cry this time. He just whispered, "I'll keep her safe. I'll keep both of you safe." For days, he wandered through the ruins. People began to appear. Survivors, soldiers, children. They didn't know who he was. They just followed the man who walked with purpose through destruction. He never spoke much. But when a child cried, he knelt down. When someone fell, he lifted them. When food ran out, he gave his share away. They called him the ghost of the cradle. But some whispered another name. The father who wouldn't let go. One night, he sat by a broken statue under a sky full of stars. He unfolded the paper crane again. The last thing Elena ever left him. It was falling apart. burned at the edges, crumpled, fragile. He smoothed it out carefully, tracing the words again. "If love built us, let it save us." He laughed softly. "Always the poet, huh?" A tear slipped down his cheek, catching in his beard. He looked at the stars. "Wherever you are, I hope she's smiling." And for a second, the wind shifted. It carried a faint sound. A child's laugh. So small, so soft, but real. He looked around quickly. Nothing. Just the night. Still, he whispered, "I heard you, baby." The next morning, he reached the coast. The sea stretched endless and silver, washing over pieces of a broken city. He stood at the edge of the world, the waves lapping at his boots. And there in the water he saw it, another paper crane, floating, untouched. He picked it up, trembling, unfolded it slowly. Inside, a few simple words written in a child's handwriting. "Papa, don't stop walking." His breath caught. The paper glowed faintly, like it remembered her touch. He fell to his knees, clutching it to his chest. And for the first time since the cradle fell, he let the tears come. The wind howled around him, but it didn't sound lonely anymore. It sounded alive. It sounded like her. He stood again, wiping his face. Looked toward the horizon, where dawn broke over the sea like fire through smoke. Every step he took left prints in the sand. And as the tide washed them away, the faint laughter of a little girl echoed behind him. He didn't turn back. He didn't need to. He knew she was with him. In every breath, in every step, in every heartbeat that refused to fade. Somewhere far beyond the waves, a new world was waking, and in that first light of morning, Leon whispered the words he once swore he'd never say again. "I forgive you." The sea shimmered gold. The air stilled, and a whisper answered him, clear and warm as sunlight. "I know." The world burned, but love didn't die with it. It changed form, from fire to memory, from voice to wind. And in that silence, Leon kept walking. It had been months. The ruins of the cradle were nothing but whispers now. Grass had started to grow through the cracks. Birds sang again, shyly, like they were scared to disturb the ghosts still sleeping there. Leon stood on a hill overlooking it all. A new dawn spread across the valley, soft gold spilling over broken concrete and twisted steel. He didn't speak. He just breathed. For the first time in years, it didn't hurt to. He wore the same coat, torn, faded, marked with stories the world would never hear. The paper crane hung around his neck now, sealed in a small glass pendant. Every time the wind moved, it caught the light. A quiet reminder that love doesn't die. It just changes shape. Below the hill, small figures moved, survivors rebuilding. A city reborn out of ashes. Children laughed in the distance. Leon watched them with a faint smile. He didn't belong there, but he didn't need to. He'd already done his part. He'd burned the darkness so others could see the light. He turned away from the rising sun, ready to walk again, when he felt it. The wind shifted, warm, gentle, almost like fingers brushing through his hair. He froze. "Elena?" No sound, just the breeze. Then a small giggle. Soft, high-pitched. His daughter's. He turned quickly, scanning the horizon. Nothing. But the air shimmered faintly, a golden ripple spreading through the sky. And in that glow, for one heartbeat, he saw them, Elena smiling. The girl, holding her hand, laughing. Both made of light. He didn't move, didn't breathe, didn't want to blink. They stood by the edge of the hill, their hair dancing in the wind. Elena's voice echoed like music through time. "You kept walking." He nodded slowly, voice breaking. "I told you I would." The girl tilted her head, smiling the same way Elena used to. "Papas, are you sad?" He shook his head, even as his eyes glistened. "No, sweetheart. Just remembering." Elena stepped closer, her outline flickering like flame. "Then remember this. Every end is just the start of another story." He smiled weakly. "Then what's mine?" She leaned in, her whisper carried by the wind. "The one where you finally rest." He looked down at his hands. For the first time in forever, they weren't trembling. He exhaled slowly. "Maybe you're right." The wind wrapped around him, soft and warm. The light began to fade, but before it did, Elena reached out, her voice tender. She knows your heart now, Leon. She carries it. He looked up sharply. What do you mean? The girl waved, light flickering around her like wings. Papa, I'm with everyone now. When they laugh, when they dream, that's me. His throat tightened. I'll find you again, won't I? Elena smiled through tears. You already have, and then… They were gone. The hilltop was empty again, but it didn't feel empty anymore. Leon closed his eyes, letting the wind move through him. He could feel her laughter inside the air, not haunting, but healing. He whispered, barely audible, thank you, and somewhere far above, the wind whispered back, always. He began walking down the hill, his boots crunching over grass and stone, each step lighter than the last. The horizon stretched wide, endless, alive. People would talk about him, the man who survived the cradle, the ghost who rebuilt hope. But Leon didn't care about stories anymore. He only cared about keeping his promise, to keep walking. Because somewhere in that wind, two souls watched him, proud and free. As he reached the valley floor, a child ran past him, barefoot, laughing. She stopped suddenly, turned and smiled at him. For a split second, he swore he saw her eyes glow blue. She waved once, then vanished into the crowd. Leon just smiled. Yeah, he whispered. I see you. He walked on, into the golden light, into the wind that remembered every name, every promise, every heartbeat that refused to die. And as his figure faded into the morning glow, a voice, soft as a breath, eternal as love, whispered one last time, Papa. Keep walking. Every night. She asked for her mom. Every night. He lied. In a world where love and guilt share the same heartbeat. A mafia boss hides behind his empire of secrets. And a waitress with eyes full of sorrow hides something far greater. The truth that could destroy him. Or save what's left of his soul. Tonight, their destinies collide in a story of love, loss, and redemption that refuses to die. So before we begin, because some stories are felt deeper than they're heard, this is… She asked for her mom every night. The mafia boss never knew the waitress was hiding the truth.